who are going to join us on stage pretty soon. Warik Saab, Hemant Kadse, Vinod Kapse. So, I mean, they are all people who are with FSAI. They have been kind of, attending a lot of our events, and, we have been working together pretty closely. A bit about FSAI to start off. We are 20 years old now. I don't think, can you change the next slide? Yeah, okay. We just celebrated our 20th anniversary a few months back. So it started in a very small way. We started out in Chennai, and after that we kind of, got to setting up number of chapters, and today we have got 24 chapters all around India. We are typically into fire protection. Our members are basically, we started in 2002, our members are typically into fire protection, life safety, security, building automation, loss prevention, and risk management. In fact, if you look at the profile of most of our members, it's basically members who are from the industry, who work with the industry, or who are actually interested into life safety. These are our different chapters. Actually, we have got 24 chapters all around India. Some of our key corporate members, we just displayed their logos so that, who works with us. One of the main things I feel as any association, seminars, webinars, all the events, those are things we normally do. But one of the main things is working closely with the government to see how we could influence standards actually. So, one big challenge for us is fire being a state subject, even though we have got BIS, we have got our national building codes, but there are also state regulations which govern it. So to work along with all the state governments is something that we look forward to doing. We have been doing it, but I think we need to do much more on that actually. Yeah. This is something that's very, very close to our hearts. That's the school awareness program. I think most of us, when we were in school, we quite probably never had any training in terms of what fire equipment is, what to do in case of a fire. So that is something what we do. We go back to school, we kind of, teach them what to do in case there's a fire, how they could react, how they could escape in case there's a fire, what should they be doing. So that is something I think which is very, very important to teach them young, make them understand the importance of a fire extinguisher, importance of what they do in case of a fire. Events, we actually do a lot of events actually all across our 24 chapters. We have events which goes on continuously. It's basically seminars, training programs. Basically, we are tied up with NFPA. We just did one of the most prestigious NFPA show, which is NFPS, CFPS. We had around 30 people who attended in Bangalore. We have NFPS 72, which, again, we had trainers coming from NFPA. The reason we do this is we want the industry people to come up to a certain level. We want them to be trained well on what the standards are and how important it is to design a system in the right way. We have a lot of students chapter which are opened up. In fact, we work very, very closely with students to see how best we could kind of, educate them about different systems that we kind of, about different fire systems, different security systems. One of the things what we do is also set up skill development centers. In fact, recently, along with the government of Goa, we set up a skill development center in Goa. Now, this is the skill development center where we actually kind of donated not only the equipments, we went in and we also have a training module set up for them, and we also have money which is kept, as a deposit with them, so that they don't fall short any time of, because you start off a course, and if there are not too many people, it takes a bit of a time for it to kind of, really, for people to know about what it is. So this is something that we're doing along with government of Goa. Suraksha Index, this is something that we really put in a lot of effort. In fact, there are people from FSCI who put lot many hours to come up with this. Now, Suraksha Index is more of a rating system in buildings to say how safe a building is. Now, this is where, the first step is you have to have an NOC from the fire department. That has to be there. And after that, we go in and see how safe and secure a system is, and then we do a rating system for them. So we have run this training program. We have an online exam for people, and we have already had the first batch of around 35 people who have already trained. The second batch training is going on. We're tied up with Godrej, where we are tied up for more than 250 buildings, where we go and do Suraksha Index, rating for different buildings. So this is a process which we just started off. It's a lot of effort that went into making that whole document, designing what is needed in a building. The other major events we have is FIST Awards, which is coming up early next year. Now, FIST Awards is something which is we do along with PwC, where we recognize people from the industry for new products, for new technologies, for good installation practices. So we kind of, one is we get all the nominations in, then PwC does the first round of evaluation, and then it goes to a jury who, at the end, announces the awards. We had more than 215 webinars. Webinars is extremely important because that is something where people can sit at home. So we actually kind of, encourage people to kind of, let us know what are the topics they need, and then we kind of, get the right speakers around that and try to kind of see that, we have the right expert to talk on those particular subjects. So we actually webinar is a continuous process that we have been doing. In fact, we did quite a lot during COVID times. I must say that actually quite probably we were one of the first associations to have kicked that off, and it was really a big success. People really loved it actually. Just a second. Yeah. Public awareness program is something that we do. We do an audit of the Ganesh Mandals here in Bombay. In Calcutta, we do for Durga Puja. We go and audit because it's extremely important, because that's one place where we have large gatherings. We have people, it's all temporary structures. So the probability of a security breach, a fire risk is very, very high. And what we have seen is across the years in Bombay, what we have been doing, we have seen the mandals itself, over the years when we give our comments, they themselves the next year, they kind of keep improving themselves. So it's good in one way. So we are very happy to contribute back to the society in that way, that at least we are running an awareness program, public awareness program based on this. Then we have a FSI Life Marathon, which we kind of, quite probably by next year, we could be having it in 14, 15 cities, which we already planned out. Because this is something we started off in Pune in a small way, and actually it's really growing, because it's more of an awareness program we do along with the fire department, the police. So it is not only the run, it is also the fire department coming and demonstrating their equipments, talking about kitchen safety, talking about what to do in case of a fire. There could be a demonstration of fire extinguishers. So it's basically an entire event that happens around that. Communications, we have our FSI journal, newsletters, our directory. So that is something that goes, it's a journal where we have articles in case there is anybody who's interested to contribute articles, the more than welcome. It goes to our editorial board, and we kind of, get this out bi-monthly. The big event that is coming up next is PAC. Actually, this is this time at Cochin. This is for project heads, architects, consultants, conclave, which is, this year we had it in Goa. Next year it is going to be in Kochi. And I would welcome anybody who would like to be a part of it. Please do let us know. We'll be more than kind of, willing to see how best we could kind of accommodate people over here. It's an event. Normally we kind of invite around 500 to 600 top architects, consultants to come in, and our industry people. It's a chance for them to network with them, understand the challenges. We have some of the best speakers come in and speak about what the challenges are. The next is we have FSI, which is coming up in August. Now, FSI is our exhibition, which is on 24th, 25th, and 26th August, which is at Reliance Geo Center, which is quite probably one of the best, exhibition centers today. And we actually are tied up with quite a few other associations internationally, for them also to come and see that we have some of the best speakers around. We have some of the best people who come and exhibit their products. As of now, I would say, even though it's in August next year, it's quite probably almost around 70–80% full. And it's going to be a really great show, and I look forward to meeting all of you all over there, because that's a great event, and we'll have a lot of seminars along with that. It's just not an exhibition. And for people who are not members over here, anybody who cares about life safety, about security, please come and join it. it's a very nominal fees. It's just some 3,250 for 3 years for individuals. So it's not the money that we're talking about. It's more a participation from people that we are looking at actually. So I'd more than welcome anybody who would like to be an FSA member. Please let us know. There are different categories of membership, and we've got a stall here. So please do let us know if we can be of any help to you. That's all from my side. Thank you very much, and thanks to all the panelists. Thanks to TAC for putting up such a great show. I was just telling him today, I think he should be really looking at more such shows, actually. I mean, it's turned out to be a really amazing show. Thank you, TAC. And I look forward to kind of, interacting more with all of you all. And a great panel discussion is going to follow here. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Raghavan. Before we proceed with the rest of the events for the day, I would like to extend a warm welcome to our young and budding architecture students from IES College of Architecture. A lot of them have come here, and I sincerely hope that you go and take a lot of inspiration and a lot of learning, because undoubtedly you are the future of this country and of whatever it is that we will be professing here for the next 24 to 48 hours. So welcome, and I do sincerely hope that you participate and take away a lot of learning from here. What only remains for me to do today is then to invite the moderator for the panel discussion for today. I have the pleasure to introduce Mr. Hemant Kadse, Fire and Life Safety Consultant and founder of East Corp. Mr. Kadse is Group CEO of East Corp Group of Companies, diversified in fire, security, and safety consulting. He is a qualified fire and life safety consultant with extensive engineering and business experience gained over 24 years, having worked with some of the largest and most complex projects within India. He has an unprecedented understanding of codes and standards, which underscores his ability to execute the specialist services provided by the group. He currently leads East Corp EMI India Private Limited and FLS Engineering Consultants Private Limited group of companies. He has stellar work experience in the fire industry, having worked with leading organizations like Tyco Fire Protection Products India, Honeywell International, the Notifier brand, Techno Fire Production Services Private Limited in Mumbai, Air Radio Technical Services WLL in Bahrain, Devi Dayal Industries in Mumbai, Mathur & Platt also in Mumbai. And he also has key memberships of the following associations: National Fire Protection Association USA, Institution of Fire Engineers India, Fire and Security Association of India, National Safety Council of India, and AISIS. I have the pleasure to welcome Mr. Hemant Kadse on stage, please.
Thank you for the great introduction. Good morning, everyone. I think we are all charged up today for starting the session. I think I can see a big crowd here. All the chairs are occupied, which is great, because usually our experience is that in exhibition, getting the chairs occupied itself is a big challenge. So I'm glad that the organizers have done a wonderful job to get this audience out here and hear from the industry's voices today. In fact, there are many events that does happen in the industry, which is in the form of training, seminars, and panel discussions. And today the panel discussions is becoming a very common practice. But if you look at the spirit of the panel discussion that happens usually, it is something which is really meaningful than usually a training and seminar does, which is a kind of a one-way communication. But when the panel discussion happens involving the fusion of the talents, therein the deliberation that happens, the knowledge that gets dissipated, it's something which is very relevant, which is really meaningful for the industry and for the community as such. So today is the same occasion we have, where we have a fusion of all the society elements representing each sections, wherein we are going to discuss a topic which is building evacuation. And that is something very, very critical for many users, for many challengers, for specifiers, code consultants and stuff like that. Because if you see the tragedies that are happening in and around, in our country, outside the country, And the major cause of the accident that happens, or even fatalities that happen, it's basically one of the reason is evacuation. Evacuation is not able to happen safely and speedily, and that's the reason the cause of the death or the life loss happens. So we are going to make a very interesting session out of involving the authorities here, the specialists here in next probably, I don't know, 45 to 60 minutes time, whatever that is available. And then we will have also open session where we will pick up the questions and answers from the audience so that it becomes a two-way kind of an activity. But all I can say that this topic is actually having a lot of prashna chinna with many people. And our attempt of getting this panel discussion out here is basically from a journey from prashna chinna to prashna shunya. And that is how the situation that we want to achieve in very less or given time. How do you get clarity in our terms, or how do you get clarity in terms of understanding the application, codes, compliances in whatever time that we have, because we have an expert out here. We are going to hear the wisdom out of them, and let's have that journey of prashna chinna to prashna shunya, so that at the end of this session we will have a better clarity. So let me invite you, all the specialists and the authorities out here. I'll introduce one by one, and let's welcome with the pause of hands Mr. Santosh Warik. He is the Chief Fire Officer for Maharashtra Industrial Development Corporations and also Director of Maharashtra Fire Services. Very down-to-earth person, very knowledgeable, and he is driving the industry so well. One of the best popular fire professional in the industry, needs no introduction. So welcome Warik Saab for this particular panel discussion, and entire audience is eagerly waiting to hear your wisdom today on this topic. So thank you, Mr. Warik. Let me introduce and invite Mr. Uday Dambe. He is the Electrical Inspector, Government of Maharashtra Lift Unit, of course, Energy Department. Very well experienced, more than 1 decade out here. Again, very down-to-earth person, always eager to share the information and get clarity on the codes and compliances. So we have a great combination today. One is a fire authority and one is an elevator authority out here, sitting here. So I think it will be a very interesting session. We also have an owner to introduce, and leading the fire, the Kapse Consulting, his own organization into fire security and MEP consulting, into industry since more than 30 years, and of course having a lot of recognition internationally and locally. And of course we will also hear from him his wisdom's words. Let me also invite and introduce Mr. Anupam De, AD Architects, one of the leading architects in India. Worked with Hafiz and is running an organization and doing projects pan-India. Of course, he has a lot of experiences, good and bad, both in terms of handling fire and life safety. So I think we will also hear a lot of solutions and challenges both with regards to the topic that we have today. Another interesting panelist, we have Mr. Vishnu Parash. He is representing TK Elevators. He is the Senior Vice President of Quality Management, and of course when we are getting that call organized day for yesterday, we got a lot of insights on fire and life safety aspect. So it's a great to know both the side of the coin, having being specialist into elevators and also having acumen of safety. It's a great combination. So thank you, Mr. Parashar. We have Mr. Amitabh Kumar, who is the founder director for Pros Matrix. Again, coming from a project management background, having 34 plus years experience, worked with various developers and builders, now working here as the director. So it's really honor to have all the great talents out here in the industry. We have very popular panelist in the industry, Mr. Harun Siddiqui from Rustamji Developer. Always you find that he's so energetic in sharing his wisdom, experiences in the industry, and really society is benefiting out of his experiences of into the facility management and the construction industry. So we have a great combination today. If you look at the forum, it's a diverse, I would call it a fusion today. So we will have this interesting session right now live. But again, I as a moderator, I'm not going to carry a label, whatever I have. I'm going to represent you guys here. I'm going to represent as an audience, as a community. On your behalf, I'm going to throw a lot of questions so that you guys get a clarity, we all get a clarity. At the same time, all the forum out here is going to again represent their own community section, like architect is the architect community. So that's how we will have this very healthy, open exchange today. Before I get into the call, the session, as a formality, I think we need to stand in front and take a pose picture so that the organizers can take the memory out of it, and then we can start the session. Okay, so we are all set. Thank you so much. Actually, although we had a dry run in getting the introduction of all the members here, but today I want to have a very, very straight, candid, and open discussion so that the real information comes out in reality. So let me start with the code authorities out here. First, to begin with Warik Saab, which is always the hot seat, and he is a man of attraction. So I want to ask you very... yes, I will sit down after this. Yes, okay, sure. So I want to ask and begin with Warik sir, see, in terms of a code official or authority out in India. Having said that, we have a very vibrant construction industry today, which is rapidly changing day by day, and we have a code compliances which is not having the same pace what actually the industry is actually taking. Now, in terms of evacuation, which is the title of the topic today, do you see a room for improvement in terms of code compliances, or do you see that whatever code that we have right now are adequate enough to achieve the safe and speedy evacuation for all the occupancies? So over to you, sir.
Hemant, thank you for this question. And it is directly related to the Indian culture. As far as safety is concerned, unfortunately, whatever safety, basic safety requirements are there, like electrical safety, fire safety, road safety, they are not a part of our school education. And once we reach up to college level, then only we come to know the basic safety requirements. So that is a major gap what I see in our cultural issues are there. So whatever standards are there, they are really at par with international standards. We have building code, national building code is there, and it is a dynamic document, and it keeps on updating depending upon needs of the nation. It tries to update, and there is representation from various authorities, stakeholders on this standard making process. So every suggestion is always welcomed by Bureau of Indian Standard, and it is considered for the development of the standards for better implementation towards the fire and life safety. So as far as evacuation is concerned, it is for every building evacuation is required, specifically high-rise building. Again, high-rise building definition is different for the different states or the cities. In Mumbai, it is 32 meter. As per rest of Maharashtra, it is 24 meter. And rest of other parts of the nation, somewhere it is 15 meters. So it differs from city to city, state to state. But for all high-rise building, evacuation is important for considering the man-made and natural disaster. So no building is fireproof, no building is, we can try to make it, but there are flash floods, there are earthquakes. So considering all natural and man-made calamities, we have to plan ourselves. So that is the intent of evacuation. So basic important aspect or feature of evacuation is the staircases, lifts, which are coming down from the high-rise building to the ultimate safety. Once you are out of the building, open to sky on ground level or in the marginal spaces or assembly point, so that is called as a ultimate safety. And there are provisions for comparative safety. Once you enter into the refuge area of the building or some protective areas provided inside the building, so you are comparatively safe than the fire incidents or other emergencies, and there will be a guided evacuation. So majority the fire acts of the states, they diverge towards the National Building Code Part 4, and the Schedule D of National Building Code Part 4 has got provision for the how to plan the evacuation drill and how to implement it in all high-rise building. Similarly, there are provisions in the Factories Act for the mock drills and the training part of it for the high hazard industries. So these are the regulatory authorities already created through different acts and regulations for the evacuation of the occupants, safely evacuation of the occupants in case of emergencies. Also in the new National Building Code, that is 2016 edition, there is a requirement of horizontal evacuation for hospitals. In hospitals, the total evacuation is not possible. So considering that aspect, the compartmentation has been done, and for every floor, and you can migrate the patient from one compartment to another compartment to create a comparative safety of the patient. So these are the various provisions made available in the National Building Code Part 4, considering the evacuation of the occupants. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. It was very well worded. Thank you, sir. It was very well worded explanation. So, but of course, it will open up another sub questions which I'll come back to you. So, let me also understand. Let us also understand the other side of the coin from Mr. Uday. When you talk about evacuation using the prescriptive mode for okay. When we understood from sir about the code compliances and specifically the NBC. Thank you, sir. Let's also understand the second side of the coin in terms of vertical evacuation also as a elevator means. How does it going to contribute in terms of evacuation, or what is the weightage given in terms of safety for elevators? So would like to hear Uday sir from you. I think he has got an interesting content to show up and present as well. So yeah, we'll hear.
Hello. It is working. Thank you for your question. Actually, the idea of evacuation was started in 2020, I guess in UDCPR requirement, and I'll show you some the provision of evacuation lift is given in the UDCPR, and from there the idea of evacuation or guided evacuation or fire evacuation is started. So for the vertical transportation, before the 2020 we using lifts for the vertical transportation, and in case of emergency or in case of fire, lift shall not be used. Already all you know that only firemen can use the lift. But for the evacuation of high-rise building, evacuation by means of staircase is very difficult, as we consider the senior person living in the building, the disabled person living in the building, pregnant women, pets. So evacuation by means of staircase will be very slow, and response will be very late. So will cause the casualty in the fire cases. So the idea of evacuation started in UDCPR, and it was not clear that what kind of evacuation is required. So and itself you can see that there is a fire chute, there is a control lowering device. So the name of lift or the idea of lift is changed by the word, the control lower device, the ascending descending device, and there is a no clear idea to the developer to the user that what kind of lift shall be used in case of fire emergency, and resulted into some unsafe installation which we have identified in across the Mumbai, and it will cause or it will create another disaster in the emergency situation. I'll show some unsafe installation in Mumbai. Actually, I want to show that how lifts are being constructed by the industry. So it is in next slide. See, on the name of evacuation lift, G+55 building is constructed outside the building, and it is in use and it has been approved by the authorities. And this may cause another disaster because you cannot use lift in the open space. The installation itself will, will not be remain for next 2 or 3 years. And in case of emergency arises in next 20 years, how can we use this lift? So idea of evacuation is actually very much required in high-rise building, but it shall be, the construction of lift must be as per the provision of rules and lift act in Maharashtra. And if we, the stakeholder, the firefighter and ourselves, we come together and give a better solution for the evacuation, then the idea of evacuation will be served.
Okay, thank you, sir. So now we have understood the code compliances requirement in terms of fire and in terms of elevator. Now when an architect actually begins the project, of course the first point is that what's a owner's requirement or a operational requirement for the building, and then second and very critical is basically knowing the compliances and that to a statutory requirement. So now of course we have heard from them, and also the reality is that nothing is clear or nothing is perfect. But in that still dilemma, we still have to go ahead and meet the expectation of a builder or a owner perspectively within the boundaries of the code compliances. So as an architect, I want to ask you, Anupam sir, how do you see the challenge and how do you think that we should overcome these challenges in terms of following the battery limit, at the same time meeting the construction requirement, making the building modern, making the building which is futuristic? So any thought on that, sir?
Sure. Yeah, so as an architect, typically we must follow the codes to create safety parameters for all its occupants. I'm sure while making the codes, respective codes, NBC or otherwise, all the concerned people have put in time and effort in making those codes. And there are reasons behind each and every code. The challenge we essentially face is when in different cities, states, and the authorities, the interpretation of those codes, be it the fire tower, be it travel distance. So how travel distance is calculated in Bombay is calculated differently in Gurgaon. So those are the challenges we face, where I feel there is a need for India to have a universal code in terms of fire safety. That's key, because safety of anyone's life in any part of the country is equally important as someone in Bombay. Once the codes are clear and the intent is right, I think planning is quite simple. So today, developers also have, over time, have matured, and they want to make good buildings which are internationally benchmarked. So I see no reason why we can't make the best of buildings with good fire evacuation strategies amongst other amenities, so long as there is a uniformity in the code.
So what you're saying is basically the need for standardization in terms of codes, and then also so that interpretation becomes easy and standardized. I don't know, that's a really wild wish that we can have, especially for Indians having so many challenges. But of course, this opens up a new dialogue and new area where we industry can work on. But then when the architect actually completes the design and does his job commercially or technically, whatever you say, Then there comes how the developer is actually getting into the requirement of fulfilling those and actually starting that operations so that it becomes a safe and secure building. So in terms, again, in the eyes of evacuation, let's specifically, I want to ask you a question, Harunji. How do you implement those, all the requirements, whether it's a code and compliant requirement, owner's requirement, operator requirement, and majorly whole life cycle, it should be the same way what it was there in the day one. So as a developer, where do you see the issues lying in terms of evacuation and maintaining those compliances and practices in India specifically?
Thank you, Hemanji. And first of all, the cascading of questions is very appropriate, and really it is getting to a point where the questions in mind are coming directly. Authorities has fixed what is required, and the authorities who are checking how to install it and how to maintain it, they had given their point. And by my side, Mr. Anupam is there, who is the designer. I am a developer. So these things are completed. Designer will design, and as he mentioned, the requirements. So designers and architects are very much involved in getting, speaking to the authorities and getting the codes. And after getting all those things, it is the OEMs who are present here, and a lot of OEMs are there, reputed OEMs are there. So my request is, the more collaboration is required at the time of the concept. No architect, no developer, nobody in the industry wants the unsafe building. And to locate, we have the leading architects, and India is plenty of good buildings we are having, high-rise building we are having. But I see some more collaboration is required in this scenario. And this 2016 NBC code is a revolution because it came after a long time. And that what Mr. Anupamji had told, that continuous, that dynamics should happen. Now it is almost 6 years. So those compliances and codes should be updated. In this scenario, after the installation, the fire evacuation lift, you particularly asked about that question. So one question is always in my mind, and not in all developers' mind. The equipment which you had installed, if it has to be used only during fire, so then fire should not happen. We are doing the active fire protection system, passive fire protection system, and the more emphasis is always given to the passive fire system, like fire sealants and the fire doors and the compartmentation, all other things. So fire should not happen. And in case it happens also, so then that equipment, if it is only used in the fire scenario, all the lifts, as we know, are integrated with the fire alarm system, and by any means they should come to the ground floor and nobody should use. So the firefighters' response is they try to reach within the time, but due to certain thing, there is a time gap between the incident occurring and the firefighting period. So during that period, I request authorities to frame some guidelines which should include the training of the society who is maintaining it, and the OEM's responsibility when it comes to the fire incident, so that before the firefighters reaches to the venue accident site, so then somebody can use those fire evacuation lifts. So that is the main thing. And other thing, from this forum, I want to thanks to CFO and the PWD, and now the inspections they are doing very keenly for our projects. For so many projects, they are going to such details that ventilation in the electrical panel should be there, and they are making very good points. So we cannot leave everything to the authorities. They are guiding us, they are helping us, but they had the bandwidth. They cannot reach to each and every nick and corner, and we cannot depend 100% upon them. And we should facilitate to have the safe buildings and safe environment. That can happen. The OEMs, this AMC part, which needs to be improved and which needs to be upgraded. It should not be a just 1 year AMC and certain points and certain logs to be maintained, but that needs to be integrated with the authorities also, because if there is a monitoring, so then there is a deterrence and there is a compliance. So that AMC part should OEMs to take further. And So like Mr. Hemant asked, what about the equipment functionality? So these are my two basic points I will conclude. The use of the fire evacuation lift by the end users before coming to before the firefighters reaches over there, and also there should be a consolidated document for a developer or a designer or architect which should emphasize that should be a package document. It should spell out all the requirements, architectural requirements, structural requirements, and the integration with the fire alarm system. And now the IS code says it should be auto dialer system also should be there. But all those requirements, this IS requirement, NBC requirements, all should be collaborated well, and it should be the discussion should, more discussions are required to freeze the document. And one thing I want to say very proudly from this forum, I had worked in Dubai and Middle East for long, and we had seen all the codes and standards, but our NBC code and our IS codes, these are not less than any international standards, and they are upgrading every time. So we are proud of using those codes, and in some instances, I will give one very small example. In NFPA, it is written that sprinkler should be 25 mm below the soffit of the slab. But our CFOs, when I joined in Mumbai, I saw that sprinklers are 150 below the soffit. So then I asked the question, as per NFPA, we are putting to get the more height. But here they had refined the NFPA requirement, because the 25 mm gap is less, and due to the workmanship, the sprinkler may not work. So they had specified the 150 mm. This is over and above the codal requirement. That is the one example I had given. That perception we should remove over from mind, that these codes are just to create hurdles, and these are not as per the international norms. They are very much better if somebody goes into the details. So these codes and people have put a lot of efforts in 2016 NBC. I know personally the people who are in the committee, they had volunteered that, because this is not full-time job of them. So they had volunteered, and they had spent a lot of time over there and efforts. Thank you, Hemant.
Thank you. I think so far we have been only hearing the brighter side of the coin. Nobody's pinpointing specifically the pain areas. But on the behalf of audience, and that's what my role is, I want to ask Amitabh ji, we have a lot of diverse occupancy within India. We have large airports coming up. We have very wide malls. We have very big hospitals. And when you talk about evacuation, and that too a safe, speedy evacuation, where do you see the area where we need to strengthen up and we achieve that safe and speedy evacuation? So overall, you have got a wide experience in the industry. So I want to ask you, holistically, where do you stand and how do you make things better?
Thank you. Good morning to all of you in the audience, and good morning to panelists also. So it's a nice opportunity to talk to all of you on this occasion. So I will have 2-3 points. I will mostly focus on tall buildings. I am in CTBUH, Council on Tall Building and Urban Habitat Height and Data Committee. So I am representing CTBUH International. So first thing come to my mind is the occupants coming out of the building. So we have increased the staircase width to 2 meter from 1.5 meter for high rises. But if you imagine a building of 80 floor heights and all the occupants coming through the staircase, will it be possible to evacuate them? It will not be. How big you have make the staircase. I have personal experience of evacuation. 20 years back, I was maintaining a building of 20 floors where unfortunately a fire happened, and I was there in the building, fortunately, and I saw the people evacuated. I helped them. And in the 20-meter building, I saw the congestion at the lower level when all the occupants are coming from the staircase. So what is the way out of that? So we have to change our mind. Basically, we need full occupant evacuation lifts to evacuate the people from the high rises. There is no other way. I will give you the example of Farman Tower, San Francisco. They are, as per local guidelines, they were having requirement of 3 staircases. But they provided out of 23, 17 fully occupant evacuation lift they provided. And due to that, the authorities relaxed that to 2 staircases. So in my mind, staircases are not going to help for especially the high-rise building. That's a very important point we should have in our mind. We should not, we have to make the lifts to use that. My second point, other than that, is assembly area and other things we don't maintain. If we go to the buildings, assembly area is packed with some material, vehicles are parked there, nobody takes care of that. So that's very important. During the life cycle of the building, we have to maintain all those assembly areas very, very stringently. That's very, very much important. And people, third thing I would like to tell the authorities that developer, I worked with all the developers, India Bulls, K. Raheja Corp, with my 34 plus years of experience. No developer wants any shoddy work. They are equally eager to maintain the highest standards available internationally. So whatever good is for public, for the occupant of the building, no developer is going to shrink off their responsibility for that. So they should not have in mind that developers are not there to cooperate with them. We are ready to cooperate more than what they want. One more point I would like to that, I am not happy with the present lift which he shows in the outside lift, that ascending, descending lift. So there are 2-3 problems into that. The machine is below. So during the fire, when all the water will be accumulated, then your machine will be lost. So how it will work? And it's very difficult to maintain. Nobody is using that. If a lift is not used, it will never be maintained. So I think that somehow it has come to our BMC authorities and something. So I feel that it is not serving the right purpose. Maybe it has been done with a very good intent. I am not saying that it has been done with a bad intent. But all over the world, I have seen that the authorities always learns from the industry. Industry goes above, and then they catches up with the industry. So same should happen here. If something aberration has come into the rules, so why not scrap it? That's one point from my point of view.
Thank you. I think it is really lot of insights are coming in from everyone. And as Abhindabji said, that of course there is a room for us to also improve and look at the alternate means of egress using elevators is the need of our. And that's what probably the codes and practices does allow when you have a alternate or different ways of evacuation, mass evacuation, phased evacuation, and there is also self-evacuation where the persons within their facility and specifically super high-rise building are actually taking the help of elevators which are built specifically for evacuation purpose. So I think let's hear from a very internationally experienced Vinod. How do you see the trend for a vertical evacuation using the elevators, fitting the compliances within India?
Thank you very much, Hemant. Yeah, I would start with first getting the fundamentals straight. Traditional elevators, traditionally people say that when there is a fire, the lift has to come down. That's called the first phase recall. So the lift will come down and open, and nobody is supposed to use the lift. The second phase is the recall 2, where the fire officer gets into a lift and he controls the lift by going up with his equipment. That's the traditional way. The second is fire access elevator, what we call firefighter's lift. That's the second part of the lift definition, wherein the fire officer is responsible to use the lift, and he's the only person who will use the lift. The third point of discussion here is occupant elevator evacuation. This means an occupant is independently free to use the lift during evacuation. So the buildings that are coming up now are super high-rise buildings with 200 meters, 300 meters. We should open up to the point of occupant evacuation elevators. So we are talking about that point, Hemant, if you're right. in this particular definition of occupant elevator, evacuation elevators, an occupant is free to take a lift down, and there is a very high level interface between the fire alarm system, between the fire control room, and the elevator system. The elevator system should deploy, it's mandatory as per the International Building Code, where it is to comply to ASME 17.1A and CBC 44A. So those are the safety controls that are defined for an occupant elevator lift, the definition of occupant elevator lift. I'm not talking about a fire lift, an occupant elevator lift. So it defines the controls between the fire alarm system and the elevator, wherein how you can utilize an occupant elevator lift, and when it goes to stage 1, that is a stage 1 recall, which detectors, which heat temperature sensors, there is a requirement of temperature sensors in the lobby has to be enclosed. It depends upon various factors, size of lift, speed of lift, elevator lobby, hoistway pressurization or lift lobby pressurization, enclosement of lobby, smoke proofness of lobby, temperature sensors in the lobby, multi-sensor heat detector and a smoke detector in the lobby, which initiates the first recall. That's the lift coming down. Till then, the lift is open for the occupants to use. That's the point. As far as the design is concerned, yeah, as per the International Building Code and ASME 17.1A, one floor, the fire floor, and the 2 above contagious floors, and the 2 below contagious floors. 5 contagious floors are what the lift will first attend. And then, if there is a fire call from another other department, it will go to the other floor. So there is a clear-cut operation detail and a flow chart given how you can deploy this. For that, the lift manufacturers has to comply to the ASME code, where it complies to the control and the display definitions of the code. Only then we can deploy that code. If you talk of the local codes, National Building Code 2016, only for buildings that are more than 200 meters, there is a definition of an occupant evacuation lift, where an occupant can use a lift. However, the control philosophy is left to the OEM, the experts to define. There's no specific definition on how the control philosophy would work. That's that's NBC. It's only for 2,000 meters. Anything that is 60 meters or less, there is the definition of a fire lift is given. Again, when I say fireman lift, it is only to be used by firemen, not an occupant. More than 70 meters, there is UDCPR and an NBC, which gives a little higher capacity of lift. For example, for 60 meters and below, the fireman's lift, it's only a fireman's lift, which is about 544 kgs, 8 people, and all. And if it is more than 60 meters, it is 1,000 kgs capacity, 15 people, and there are a little enhancement of lift has been given. As far as evacuation is concerned, occupant evacuation is concerned, there are no specific definitions. I think we need to really work on that. As per the latest electrical inspector notification that I read, which is of 22nd of July, they have given a requirement for an evacuation lift. But if you go through the notification, it is more of firemen using that lift and not otherwise. And the location of lift and 8 probabilities of A, B, C, D, E has been defined, where it can be in the landing, it can be in the main course. But however, that there is a disparity between what is written in other documents and this. We should come to a conclusive document which can define all 3 categories of lift. And all across the world, towers which are higher than 36 meters, as per International Building Code, you can have an occupant evacuation lift. An occupant can independently take the lift and come down, but it requires a lot of control philosophies, lift compliances, structural compliances, smoke pressurization and verification, and that's what I can conclude.
Thank you. I think it was really great points for the code of authorities, even for the communities to bring it along, and then probably. And of course, we need to put always the comma to the code development process, because there is nothing full stop. There is no code that can say that it is foolproof or it is complete. It is always a journey, and I think it's a good, Vinod, that you have put the point that yes, we need to upgrade and look at it. So we have an OEM here and an expert here. Now, having said all requirements, knowing all the requirements, as an OEM, where do you see that it is getting followed when you have a requirement like lift door to be rated, not a resistance, is rated. So how do you see, as a, even you are a quality management expert, so you know what's the meaning of resistance and rated. Whatever is there written in the paper, how do you see that it is getting implemented at site and it is delivered in complying those norms and all the applications? Yeah.
Thank you, Hemant. So as I see, there are two distinct requirements which are coming out from the discussion what we have so far. One is the occupant evacuation phase. So occupant evacuation is different to firefighting phase, and we should have a clear distinction between the two because the requirements of the elevators also differs for these two purposes. So we need to be clear in our minds what is occupant evacuation, when it is to be used. It is supposed to be used before the fireman actually arrives. And once the fireman arrives, then of course the firefighter elevator, which is supposed to work with the fire and it is supposed to have different specification, that comes into picture. The firefighter elevator, depending on situation, the fireman can decide to evacuate further or use it to douse the fire. So these are the two distinct requirements. Accordingly, of course, the controls have to be defined differently. So at the moment, in the BIS standard, we don't have a clear standard for firefighter elevators. It is still under draft stage. We are still working on it. For the occupant evacuation, the normal elevators, they can be used for evacuation, subject to some controls, change of controls. So this is the requirement which is taken. At the moment, as many of our Mr. Day also said, the requirements, they vary from city to city, state to state. I think we need to have certain guidelines nationally so that everybody is in the same plane, so that we don't talk different in terms of in Mumbai and Delhi or Gurgaon, we talk different. Requirement is same. The occupant evacuation requirement is same, and the firefighting evacuation requirement is also same. So I think this is what we need to follow further.
Right.
Yeah.
Very good, sir. So I think we are getting a lot of inputs and actions to be done. But of course, most of the elements that I can see that it is pointing towards compliances to look at, to revisit, so that people can implement. We have international presence out in this audience as well. Sheila ma'am, are you there? Yeah. Okay. So I think maybe if you can get some mic for her, we can probably hear from her. Where do you see we can probably implement some of the good practices, which is a global practice for India market in terms of best evacuation practices?
Okay, the occupant evacuation elevator is an excellent idea. The hardening of the hoistway is one of additional expenses. There's also the hardening of the elevator doors. They have to have a certification that a huge amount of water can be shot at them and they still are maintained intact. You also get into keeping water out of the hoistways, and that is even in fire evacuation elevators. And they give us so much information in the code by saying you must keep water out of the elevators. And how exactly do you do it? We have had the brushes. We have had the elevator raised from the floor, like a 4-inch curb put in front. so that water does not get into the hoistway, a speed bump type of situation, which is not a great idea for keeping people from tripping. There's also, in occupancy evacuation elevators, you can't put water on them. So there can be no sprinkler system in that elevator, and that elevator machine room must be separate from all the other elevator machine rooms and hardened also. It's been my take, it's never a good idea to put water on an elevator at any point, at any time, and I don't actually understand why it's less, that any of our elevators should be less safe than any of the other elevators. When they started putting in the sprinkler systems and I mean, you think, what exactly does that do? The electronics and electrical parts of an elevator, if they get wet, they're going to stop the elevator. I mean, we have that many safety devices. So it's, in all honesty, we should harden the whole thing. And it might be cheaper to do that because you harden, and your elevators have to be separately hoistway, not just one 4-car hoistway and such. But it actually doesn't make sense that one should be hardened in a better in a better position, in a safer position than any of the rest. And if calculations are done on the amount of money spent to do this, it seems to me that it would be less expensive to do them all the same way. And it would also allow the architects to know the whole situation, and it becomes all of these elevators must do this. And you don't have to define which one and where. Also, there's no requirement that says you can't put an occupant evacuated elevator anywhere that you want to. And you can't, and there's nothing that says all of them can't be made that way. So I think we need to get, I've had them put in my buildings. They're impossible. You can't keep water out of them. I mean, exactly what do you do? Take the fire hose to it immediately, or, you know, there's not a way to do that right now. And until the code or the product becomes where it will meet the code, why are we putting them in the first place? So.
Thank you. I think it was great input. Good to hear that. But yeah, you want to address that?
Yeah, I would like to put some light on what you just said. Sprinklers are exempted from lift machine rooms, lift control spaces, hoistways, and any other area which are containing to the lift controls as per International Building Code and as per NFPA as well.
Even in pit?
Yeah, only in the pit at 610 mm, maximum at a height of 610 mm from the left, you can have a sprinkler, and only detectors are mandated in this particular area. That's point number one. And water seepage into the lift has been clearly mentioned that you need to have elevation and ensure that by architectural means how you can avoid water coming into the lift lobby. That's about the point one. Point number two, when you talk of occupant evacuation elevators, you can define a set of lifts, because as per the code, I'm talking here of an international code, that's IBC 2021, you need to have a maximum time of 60 minutes for the total building to evacuate through the lifts. Those number of lifts can be calculated, and first it will cover the 5 contiguous floors and then the rest of the floors. So I feel the code is pretty clear, and what we need to do for designing occupant elevator lifts, how to avoid water seepage. There is also an exemption of any shunt trip on the lift. So the lift shall not trip in case of fire. So it's clearly defined. And we need to gather those information from ASME 17.1.
Thank you. I think it was great dialogue and exchange happening. So I think we are limiting time, but I want to have another last question, which is common to all, and then maybe I'll open the forum for all the audience. Uh, we Indians are actually bringing that culture, and specifically through mock drills is getting more repeatedly nurtured, that do not use elevators in case of fire. That's a very prominent sign that we have, and that's what we actually educate the world. But then now I can see that the forum, that there is alternate means of egress also needs to be relooked. And how do you integrate or include elevator as a part of the whole egress process? So we also have a term which is again we have a lot of prashna chinna. Again, Sheila, it's like ambiguous question mark is what we call as a prashna chinna. So we have a lot of ambiguity with regards to the fire towers. And in that fire tower, we also have an element called fireman's lift. So I want to ask the common question, which I'm sure everybody can address, but let's restrict to 1 minute, a very specific clarification and your practical view, not actually the what code says. Everybody knows what code says, NBC 2016 about fire tower, but as being your own domain expert on ground, how do you see that fire tower is meaningful? Because you need a space, you need a money, you need operation, you need practice, you need awareness. Everything is all investment. It's not that just a requirement to be fulfilled. The requirement is there in the code to achieve the safe, speedy ingress and egress both when you have a fire tower. But I want to have a very clear, candid and transparent answer from each one of you on fire tower. How do you see the relevance today in the industry, or is there any gap that we can fill in to make it better? So starting with Waris sir, and then we can have 1 minute fire chat.
So as per the National Building Code, Part 4, clause number 2.24 gives the diagram for the fire tower or firefighting shaft, which is a place or it is a self-contained unit. From the common passage, you can enter with fire door of 2 hours fire resistance. Entire enclosure is of 2 hours fire resistance. Then you enter into a lift lobby wherein fire lift is located, and again you have to enter into a fire escape staircase provided inside the firefighter shaft, and it is also through 2 hours fire rating door. So it is a double protection what we are used to give to make it more safer, and this is coming from the Singapore building code. They have such a provision for the firefighting shaft or fire tower, so which we have adopted in National Building Code. And as far as the maintenance culture in India is concerned, we request for the pressurization, but it is not regularly utilized. Once the detection system activates or manual call point somebody presses, then the pressurization should start, and it should create a positive pressure inside the fire tower so that no heat and smoke can enter in the that fire tower, and it is a safe passage for carrying out evacuation of the occupants, or also to the firefighters, they are reaching for carrying out firefighting and rescue operation on upper floors. So that is the intent of this fire tower, and it is very much useful as far as the evacuation is concerned, and also for the guided evacuation is concerned. Thank you.
Hello. Actually, the fire tower, the concept actually given in the NBC, but my opinion is there is a staircase which is already protected, or it is away from the living area. If the architect strategically plan a lift next to the staircase, we can save the space in the building, we can reduce the construction cost. So it is the architect inputs that they have to strategically plan a evacuation lift next to the staircase, as the staircase itself act as a what we call area for refuge. And if we pressurize the staircase, and if architect strategically plan the staircase that integrates the entire evacuation means lift as well as staircase, and provided with this pressurized ducting, the fire doors to the staircase, we can save the space and we can save the construction cost also.
So, Mr. Warik, as a principle, the fire tower to me, I think is a good idea. Per se, in any ways, our premium buildings, we essentially had separate service elevators. So I think that service elevator combined with a second staircase fire tower is a natural thing to do in most of the high rises we do in Bombay. Certain other smaller towns, it may become a challenge because it adds to the cost. But within the fire tower, as we had a chat informal that day, there are different interpretations coming out. What is written in the NBC, the CFO of different cities are interpreting differently. Whether the fire hose should be inside, the NBC says, here some CFO says it should be outside. Whether the refuge area should be accessed from that fire tower, that is something new which is coming up, which is not per se mentioned in the NBC. So these gray areas, you know, if the code is a little more descriptive on to understand what exactly it warrants, it'll be easier for us to design. Having said that, one thing that you pointed out, ultimately it all boils down to the cultural issues. We may design buildings to the best of the ability, the developers will build them, but how we use our buildings. For, I'll give you, we plan fire doors, but tell me anyone in the audience over here, how many in your buildings you'll see the staircase door is kept open with a stone. People store cycles in the staircase, people put garbage in the staircase. So if these basic principles of good living are not met, whatever you do as design, planning, construction is pointless.
Nicely placed the thoughts. As a developer, I want to put that the concept of fire tower is very good and it enhances the safety of the occupants. But that concept needs to be more details and more updations are required. And like this location, the mid landing, if it is at the landing, so it will facilitate. And as I mentioned earlier also, it should be used in the non-fire case also. So it will be operational all the times. And we can consider that service people from that lift also, though it will just reduce the traffic analysis load also on the towers. And one thing is mentioned in this fire evacuation lifts, the communication device at each and every landing is mentioned. That is required to be there. For the normal lifts, we are having the three-way communications. So those things, those requirements, some requirements are not impossible but difficult to put. So those requirements of the telephone jacks and this communication system needs to be updated further. And as a developer, we are very much willing to implement each and everything because it relates to the fire safety. And this concept of fire tower is evolved. And I can say within 2-3 years, it is all merged. The latest UDCPR has cleared so many things. Earlier, it was mentioned that the lift machine room shall be at the ground floor, which was not practical because of the no OEMs are manufacturing the lifts like that, and the water egress also. So we should have the product which is available globally and which is available with all. And also the lastly, I want to put that what Anupamji has told, if we design, we install, we spend money, everything, but the involvement of the end user, like the RWAs and the group housing societies which are there, so there is a need to involve them much more and train them before the firefighters arrives to the operation of these equipment. They should, the fire marshals or certified fire professionals, persons from the society team and committee, they should be involved more. So the purpose will be, the goal will be achieved very efficiently if we involve them more. That's I need to say.
Thank you. As coming back to the tall buildings, that's my heart remains there. So we have a separate code for tall buildings for design, IS 16700. It's a tall building, concrete tall buildings. So similarly, I feel that there should be a separate guideline for especially the tall building, which is more than 100 meter, like this code has prescribed anything beyond 50 meter. is
But,
a tall building.
your view on fire tower specifically?
So this fire tower concept is very good, and what Anupam has said is a very good point. We have to find out whether this all those accessories, fire accessories, should be within that or it should be outside that. That is a very basic question. I also feel that refuge area should have access to this fire tower, because that will help in evacuation and all those things. That's my point. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I think the NBC definition of fire shaft or fire tower is similar to an international extract which says occupant evacuation shaft. It's almost similar. And NFPA 101 as well as IBC has that particular subject. My only submission would be this particular construction where it has a lobby with a door or fire-rated door and a staircase and the firefighting equipment location is absolutely necessary and it is correct. Only thing is that how this also can act as a fire lift, point number one. This also act as a service lift, and it also complies to the new notification that has come from elevator industry. So I think we need to amalgamate this and have only one equipment which is protected, properly protected with all the requirements, and designate that as a fire lift, and we should not ask for additional things to have in place. So we need to utilize that particular. We are specifying but not utilizing it. That's how I feel. So we need to utilize that, and then rest can be passenger lifts or occupant elevator lifts based on the height of the building. That can be done. That's my opinion. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks. So my opinion is also similar. Fire tower and also the firefighter elevator for tall buildings is absolute must. We must have it because the requirements are different. The firefighter elevator is supposed to run even with small sprinkling of water or some water in the pit. It is supposed to run with 0.5 meters of water in the pit actually. So requirements are different and they are necessary. So we should go by that.
I think it's a great interaction, but if you look at the summary of or extract of the conversation that we had so far, when we talk about evacuation, it involves the building design, it involves the trained marshals or resources we call as the ERT members or firefighters, rescue people, and then more or less training and SOPs, which is also going to help to ensure that the safe speed evacuation. And when building design happens, all the requirements, including what Sheila had pointed out, the requirements of the elevators which are going to be used for ingress specifically, or the architectural, what they have said, that the compartmentation, the pressurization, the travel distances, the dead end distances, the common path, everything had to be inherently put into the practice. Then and then only becomes the safe and speedy evacuation. But otherwise, just merely by building the staircases, even though we have number of staircases as 2, but if those 2 staircases are not going to meet the requirement what has been prescribed in the codes and practices and not been followed by the occupants, like what is mentioned that there are a lot of obstructions kept in the staircases, then again it is not going to be fruitful or a purposeful evacuation as such. So I think it's all great interaction. I would like to open the forum for any burning questions. So you can identify yourself first and ask questions. So I will request TK sir. Yeah, please identify yourself and then ask a question.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. I am Sumit Majumdar. I represent Williams Sale Partners WSP Middle East. My question to the forum, especially the authorities, is that see, when you design building with all the provisions of codes, but how the building behaves over the year, the occupancy and the changes. So anyway, traffic analysis is a very different subject. Number of lifts and all is question mark, whether it is sufficient or not. But when actually this kind of event happens, say building is for say 5,000 people, actually 7,000 people are actually staying there or utilizing this as an office. So what is the cross check actually? Over the years that authorities check that yes, the building population has actually gone up. is the lift sufficient, or is the authorities prepared enough to evacuate so many people over the time? So that's my question. Thank you.
You're talking about the traffic analysis part. Huh?
Yeah.
For the existing building. Actually, the evacuation or any lift or evacuation process, it shall be designed during the planning stage only. Because if we construct the building and if you consider the SRA building, then it's very difficult to add on the things or retrofit the things which will be useful in the future. So it is depend upon the planning stage only. After all, it is the up the thoughts.
Could I add to that? You know, we did talk about full evacuation. We did talk about all the things related to elevators. Now, if you were to do simple maths, traffic analysis, we talk about 10% handling capacity as the minimum for a commercial building. Now, if we talk about 10% handling capacity, it is 50 minutes. And if you look at a commercial building, and you mentioned SRA, the minimum handling capacity is 5%. Now, 5%, again, maths tells you where it could be. Now, we know for a fact when the buildings are being designed, I mean, I've been part of a panel discussion, most commercial buildings, even with a reduced population, do not even meet 10% handling capacity. So if we look in terms of full evacuation using elevators, I mean, my personal perspective is we are fooling ourselves. And if you add on to Sumit's thing saying that the building population keeps increasing. I mean, I've seen buildings where we designed on a certain number and eventually the number is nowhere near the certain number. So I think we need to be a little careful about this occupant evacuation elevator. And as an elevator person, I would say the staircase are the safest. No water issue, no breakdown possibility. These are all mechanical stuff. And if we go into the same thing and we want a full occupation, 100% of the elevators, like Sheila said, have to be available, have to be hardened or made resistant to all the situation. You know, picking and choosing and saying, okay, this will be a fire evacuation elevator and this will not be, I don't think it's really going to. We are actually going to get into a situation where we are going to confuse users because they'll be standing in front of an elevator waiting for an elevator to come. And this 10% handling capacity incidentally is just up peak. Down peak 10% handling capacity can actually deteriorate to 4 and 5%. So we could end up with serious issues. And on a cultural aspect, we know for fact people hold elevators if the elevators are not being available. So
I have one question to you, Tak, in fact. Is the lady said occupation, evacuation elevator, the biggest risk is water. So why has elevator technology not come up where you get IP65 fixtures for everything and not for an elevator?
Okay.
What is the key challenge here?
Okay. So putting it across, technology you're talking about, I would use automobiles. We've got a lot of protection for automobiles and, you know, your rugged vehicles, etc. Even the best situation, there are points where if water goes in, the car stops. So there are limitations where there are electrical and there are moving parts. Some of the components which are not in your control cannot get water. I mean, it's closed. In the car, it is sealed. In an elevator, we cannot be sealed. Even IP65, we have limitations to how much it can be protected. Yes, we can prescribe IP65. And we need to remember immediately the impact it's going to have on cost. The basic elevators we are not providing because of cost. The specifications are being chopped because of cost. And we increase the IP. Again, my perspective is it's not going to happen. So what I'm coming back to is that I think probably the combination has to be elevators and staircase. Where staircase is, if you're physically fit, the staircase is your safest bet to evacuate yourself. And I mean, also mentioned about water and bunds and things like that, it doesn't work.
So there is, Tak, one more aspect to it. With all the new electronics, there is a limit on the temperature for which it can work safely. So you cannot have control which can work for 100 degrees or even 60 degrees. So it's one part is IP protection and the second part is actually the temperature part. Yeah. So we need to have both. Yeah. Affected area. Yeah.
Yeah. Good afternoon, sir. Tambe sir during his presentation had shown some part of the UDCPR which says the fire evacuation lift is an alternative to fire chute or lowering device, which gives me an impression that the lowering device or the fire escape chutes is of the primary concern or the more important than the fire evacuation lift. My question to the panelist is whether it is a lowering device or whether it is a fire escape chute or whether it is a fire evacuation lift which is given in the mid landing, how would an occupant evacuate himself if he is a senior citizen, physically challenged or on a wheelchair? Thank you, sir.
So it is a right question. Thank you for that question. It was first introduced in 2034 Development Control Rules of Mumbai City. The different fire chutes, lowering device and the fire tower. So after installation and what we saw currently, the Tambe Saab demonstrated how the lifts are installed by making provision of lowering device. So it is very hazardous for the occupants to use such kind of a lift which are not certifiable as per the relevant Indian standards. And without any standards, somebody is putting a safety device which has to be utilized in case of emergency and which is not reliable, so that cannot be accepted. So there is a High Court committee appointed for the amendment in the Development Control Rules of Mumbai and Unified DCPR, and in that we have taken this subject and we are considering only the Part 4 fire tower which is provided, which will be on the landing, and we will not allow mid-landing opening in that provision, and it will come up in very soon. So we are eliminating that part and it is under consideration of the government.
Add to that, as per the state lift act and lift rules, a car carrying passenger traveling in vertical direction is called lift. However, due to the names, control lowering device, ascending descending device, people misconsider the concept of lift and they are installing unsafe lift. So there are around hundreds unsafe installation in Mumbai which will cause another disaster if there is an emergency. So we need to work on it, and if anything goes up and down, carries passenger and goods, it's called lift, and that lift shall be constructed as per the provision of lift rules and the relevant IS standard. So that is the answer for that.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Juzar Madarwala. I'm a fire and life safety auditor. I just want to take up from where Mr. Anupam said that what's preventing the elevator industry from making lifts which are water resistant. Okay, and I believe Mr. Matthews said that it is because of the cost. But
sorry, I said even if you increase the IP protection, you can still have ingress of water, making it unsafe.
But it will make it.
And increasing the IP protection will increase the cost. The basic elevators, we are already compromising. Asking to increase the IP protection to achieve this, I mean, the first thing we are not doing. The second thing, jumping over it, what I said is that it's not the cost.
So my question is, both the representatives of the architect and the developer, Mr. Harun and Mr. Anupam, they are not talking of cutting any corners. They say, you make a code, we will comply with it. So why are we not making that code? If they are saying that okay, we want something cheap, तो बात अलग है. अभी तो वही बोल रहे हैं कि आप बनाओ, हम देंगे.
So already,
why are we not doing it? Is my question. Thank you.
Tag Matthew has given the answer for that. Any provision, it should be acceptable by the citizens. So it should be economically acceptable also. Vice Chair of BIS, Mr. V. Suresh Saab is over here. So he can vouch for that. You cannot make a provision that cost all platinum and gold. So it should be reasonable to all kind of a building. So that is the intent of the act. What we say National Building Code is the minimum ones. So it is your requirement. You can go up to whatever standard. You can go as per NFPA, FM, whatever international standards are available. So we say the minimum ones to safeguard the minimum fire and life safety protection or lift safety protection.
Yeah, the code already asks for
Thank you.
switchgear to be IP67. All switchgears for the lifts has to be IP67. It's already defined in the code. I don't know what's new about it.
Of course, we are all aware of all these provisions. I'm sure you'll have a 2-hour session only on standards and codes from 1:30 to 3:30, where all this will be discussed in detail on what is available on the code in 2016 version, what is there in the international code, what is there in 2022 version of any part of the world over there, and what needs to be incorporated in our document to make it most efficient, also, as he said, economic and operational in a very large way. There's no meaning in trying to put provisions in a code which is unworkable and which can make it extremely, there are 100 ways to make fire resistant, everything to be there. But I'm sure it will be the same professional people sitting on the dais over there just now who will say, no, that makes, the codal provision makes it entirely unworkable, unprovided. He said that. What is the percentage of 10% that he said in terms of the loading being taken on that? I'm sure we'll come back to you on that particular thing. When you join the session from 1:30 to 3:30, you got a complete details on standards, codes in respect of lifts in a very detailed manner, including the latest provisions which are coming over there. Thank you.
Any questions? Thank you.
But I'm a little disappointed, if I may say. Now time is 2, your session time is also over. We discussed everything excepting the whole inspectorate. We are talking to the compliance point of view. We are not talked anything about enforcement. I'm a little sad that maybe possibly we'll make it up in this session, in the post session, and that's an area which is extremely sad situation there, where you can have all the codes and standards by the National Building Code or IS code or International American code, for which some of our friends are more happier with, than no issue. That doesn't help. That only will be a few builders and developers who are discerning will do it. But what is the enforcement mechanism? We are extremely, extremely poor and bad in that particular thing. And I would like to open out that in a very large way. I'm sure, Tak, you will also would need that, isn't it? We'll cover that in larger detail. In all fairness to Hemant, who has done a wonderful job, it will be very difficult to cover a large with more than 7 panelists there. But you have to open out on that. And especially even on this particular thing, how does it work and doesn't work? What needs, we are talking in terms of the architect, the builder, MEP people, we are talking assets and facility manager, even the clients who are going to stay in the old people, young people, agile people, active people, all we are talking. But we are not talked of somebody who's going to deal to say it's okay or not okay. There's a responsibility also from the government and the inspectorate also in a very large way. I'll open out on that in a very large way. Thank you.
I would just take one comment on this. In fact, Mr. Dambi and me also had a discussion on this. So if you look at building permissions, you look at even the high-rise committee requirements, nowhere does it talk about the adequacy of lifts. The only 2 places where I've seen the adequacy of lifts being addressed is MOEF, and I still have no idea why the environment would be looking in terms of the lift adequacy, and the MMRDA asked for a report. Otherwise, beyond a fire lift, there is nothing. You can get away with anything as far as building requirements go. So there's no question of enforcing the adequacy of elevators because it's never required.
Safe elevator is another.
Sorry for jumping into that.
Chintu bhai, you want to ask a question or you're okay? Anyone else has any burning questions? Yeah. Urvashi, how much time you have?
I'm Prakash Kamath. As Vinod sir mentioned, the evacuation lift gives a, it indicates as if it's a fireman's lift, one of the reasons I feel is that there is a mention of fireman's key in there. That gives an indication as it to be operated by firemen. It is supposed to be an unguided one to be used by the occupants. And as Siddiqui sir said, it should be used continuously, then only it will be in use. So as now I'm hoping, so as Hatyal sir mentioned, it is there on the mid landing. It is to be shifted to the landing so that it can be used by all the occupants during the other courses also. And this, please remove the word fireman's key there. So this gives a color as if it is the fire to be used by firemen. Thank you.
We have come up with the advisory in the July. It's an advisory only. It is not yet comply in the rules. So we are open to take all the opinions from the industry and the stakeholder. We'll come up with all ideas and we'll make a document, and then we'll make it into the rules so that it will be a comprehensive document for the construction of normal lifts, fireman lifts, and occupant evacuation lift. So I hope we'll receive some inputs from your end also, and we'll make it for the betterment of the society.
So I think we are all done.
Hemanji, just I want to add one thing.
Okay, sure.
Sorry to
Last.
interrupt you.
Yeah.
Because in continuation to Suresh sir, what he told that the enforcement and the continuation of the what we had designed it. So thanks to Mumbai CFO, we had received a document which says up to 32-meter buildings, they had identified around 58 or 60 professionals, and complete guidelines are there. So it had relieved the pressure on the authorities also and developers also. So from this forum, I request, please do some FLS audit like this, identify, because a lot of good professionals are there, make a panel of those professionals, and anything which is monitored and audited and at random audits are there, so it complements. We have the PWD's inspection of the lifts, yearly inspection. We have the Form A, Form B. On top of it, this FLS audit, which integrate everything, which integrates the water egress. If waterproofing is not perfect, if there is a leak in, we had seen in the so many buildings where the small developers or the small standalone building, if there is a leakage in the fire hose, really small leakage, it keeps on, nobody is attending that, and nobody is going over there. So that type of professionals, identified professionals, certified professional, and you make it mandate that 2-3 audits to be made, and nobody is will object to pay some fees for that. So that is my takeaway. I request, please take it further.
Superb.
Thanks,
So
Ahmed, for giving this time.
Thank you everyone for making this wonderful session. So I would like to end that. Ultimately, of course, thank you, Suresh sir, for bridging that gap which I missed out, which was there in my mind. So regulation, regulator, and regularities in implementing all the practices is something that we need to just as a takeaway for this session. So thank you very much all the panelists for spending their valuable time. Mr. Warik Saab, Mr. Dambe Saab, Anupam Saab, Harun Saab, Abitab ji, Vinod ji, and Vishnu ji. Over to you organizers. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Hemant. It was really enlightening. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you to the panelists for a very enlightening and enriching discussion. I'm sure there are very key takeaways for all of us here from this session. What I would quickly request is Mr. Usher to please come up on stage and give the vote of thanks. And then that'll be followed by us handing out a memento, a souvenir of this event. So you take away a photograph of this panel, please. Mr. Usher.
Thank you very much. Hemant, it was a wonderful, wonderful session, and I am sure that everybody has got a lot of knowledge and learnings out of this session. This makes me remember the song, Mujhko bhi to lift kara de. So if you are safe, when the code enforcers, the designers, the OEMs, the consultants, if everything is in place, then आपको lift बराबर करा दिया जाएगा, or else these words will directly go to the Almighty and वो सच्ची में आपको lift करवा देगा. I'm sure about that. So thank you for enlightening us, sir. And to end it up, the old legend says that you do your part and the rest will fall in place. We all have done our part as designers, as enforcers, as special thanks to all the audiences, and special thanks to all the students who have come here. This is a wonderful, wonderful platform for y'all to learn. Y'all are the future of the country, and these are all the experts. Probably collective experience would be more than 100 years, and you have got that within 1 hour. Please attend many more such sessions, and you'll get a lot of learnings. And as Mr. Harun had said, I'll just take a minute more. One of the initiatives that we as FSAI are taking is with the Mumbai Fire Brigade, that is called Taj, Tayari Aag Se Jeet Ki. So we would be training all the societies, the chairman, the secretary and all the CWC members, and giving them, what the act is all about and what they need to do. So I would like, all the developers also to be part of this. We will definitely, we need three things: tan, man and dhan. We are short of dhan. We would, we have people who will be training. Place would be given to us by the fire department, and we will definitely need, your support in terms of sponsorships, or in terms of, also inviting us to these societies and sending those people here. So thank you very much all, and I would like to, yes. Yes.
We'll start, of course, with the session moderator, Mr. Hemant Khadse. Big round of applause, please. Thank you. Shri Santosh Warik Sahab. Mr. Uday Dambe. Mr. Anupam De. Ladies and gentlemen, it would be very nice if you could show some appreciation with a louder round of applause. Thank you very much. Mr. Harun Siddiqui. Mr. Amitabh Kumar. Mr. Vinod Kapse. Mr. Vishnu Parashar. And then I would also request Mr. Asher and Mr. Ajit Raghavan to also collect your mementos. Thank you very much. Sincerest thanks to the panel, to the moderators, and also to the audience for a very active and engaging session. We will have the next session starting at 1:30 p.m., which will be on national standardizations for lifts and escalators. So once again, sincerest thanks, everyone. Have a good day.